let's get started with the next module, organizational influences and project lifecycle. So here, what we have is what is project lifecycle to its closure, and all projects are divided into phases. And all projects, large or small, will have similar life cycle structure. So note the word similar, not same. So it will have some kind of initial period, then initiation period, then it will have some kind of planning, some kind of execution, and closing. So those are the high level of phases which we'll see. The generic life cycle that it is talking about. Then life cycle helps in determining work to be completed in each phase of the project. So what happens is in here, for example, that is in front of you, feasibility analysis, design, and the last one is implementation. These are the phases. They can be implemented either sequentially or they can be overlapping also. But they are usually overlapping will not be 100%, but it may be part you may start a little early. So before feasibility finishes, you can start overlap analysis. That is overlapping will happen, or at times the sequential one in which the analysis will start only after feasibility is completed. So, and there could be those kind of relationship between these phases. Okay. So, what is the significance here for project life cycle? It is essentially, when I talk about life cycle, it is a series of phases that project passes through from its initiation to its closure. Okay, and these life cycle helps in determining work to be completed in each phase of it. So feasibility will have the inputs that will be taken, and it will have the output. Let's say feasibility study document, for example. So each phase will have unique output. So which we'll see, in short while. What you need to remember here is all projects are divided into phases. So this is a generic statement. So, and they will have similar life cycle structure. So it will not be same. So some projects may have less number of phases. So let's say small project. Large project may have more number of phases. So that is also a possibility. So we'll see, first generic life cycle structure, which covers, all the projects in one phase, in one, common structure, common life cycle structure, and we'll see the specific life cycle structure also. The one that is shown here is not a generic life cycle structure. So coming to generic life cycle structures, before I talk about cost and staffing levels, generic life cycle structure has starting the project as one of the phase, which produces your project charter, then organizing and preparing, which is essentially a lot of planning. That is the second phase, which produces project management plan, and according to project management plan, you carry out the work. So this is execution. I'll tell you why those words are not used in short. You will say this is similar to IPEC, why you are not using it. I'll tell you in short while. So because we are talking about phases, so carrying out the work, so essentially at the end of carrying out the work phase, you get accepted deliverables, and these accepted deliverables will at closing the project is the last phase, will be you will transition these accepted deliverables to the project, to the customer, and you will archive the project documents. This is a typical generic project lifecycle. Okay. So why the question that could come to your mind is why it is not IPEC. So the answer is every phase will have its own IPEC. So when I'm starting the project, it will go through initiation, planning. So to produce a project charter, you will do the initiation. So maybe your project sponsor will assign you as a project manager to create a project charter. He will identify first some stakeholders for you. You may have to work on, identify further stakeholder for the project, and you will do the planning for and essentially, come out with a document called project charter, which will have the high-level requirements, which will have the high-level scope, high-level, let's say, constraints, and high-level risk, and so on. High-level budget constraints also you will be captured as a part of your starting project. So as you can see, even to finish your project charter, you have to repeat your IPEC, which is initiation for the project charter, planning for the project charter, execution wherein you will write the project charter. So it may not be you, it may be, actually project charter is supposed to be written by a customer, but a lot of time the buying will happen if you yourself are writing the project charter, and that's how a lot of times in practical I have seen project managers writing the project charter, which is the right thing to do. So that is the execution part, wherein you collect all the items with respect to the project charter. What is the problem you are solving to what is the constraints, what is the high level constraint, what is the high level requirement, so high level risk, and so on will be captured as part of it, and it will have the closing cycle. In closing, you will get the project charter, which as a output. So similarly, for project management, to produce project management plan, in organization and preparing phase, you will have initiation, planning, execution, closing, and throughout these IPEC, IP, initiation, planning, and closing, executing and closing, you'll have monitoring and control going on. So essentially, you will see, we'll cover IPEC more in, when we visit project management processes in next module. But that's what the major difference between project phase and rather the correlation, the relation between project phase and your project management process groups. So project management process groups gets repeated in every phase, and that's how you get the output. So be it a carrying out of the work, be it a starting the project, be it a closing the project, everywhere your project management process groups IPEC gets repeated, and so that's the relationship between phases and project management process groups. You have to remember that, and that's how a lot of us will see that this is similar to initiation, this is similar to planning, this is similar. I agree, it looks like that, but as per the PMP standard edition 5, these are the phases, the generic phases for a generic project life cycle. Okay. Now coming to cost and staffing levels, I think this is pretty obvious what is happening here. You have zero staff and zero cost at the beginning of the project. As you create the project charter, your staffing level and cost also goes up. Organization preparing, it goes further up. It peaks out while you are carrying out the actual work phase, and that's where you have the highest cost and staffing level. So you can see that both are parallel, or they are similar in nature, or they are proportional to each other. So staffing increases, cost increases, and so on. So they are similar in nature, or same, and that's how they are shown. And while you close the project, your again cost and staffing level comes down. Okay, at that point in time. So it is with respect to time. Okay. So that's about it on cost and staffing levels. You may get a question saying, in closing the project, uh, your cost, goes down, or those kind of questions you may get. So that is the significance of this costing and staffing level in generic project. Why I'm saying generic project life cycle is essentially there will be phases, different phases for different industry, and this is a generic phase which covers all the industry. All right, moving on. This is another important diagram which tells you impact of variables on project life cycle. So you have cost of changes versus whose could be high or low degree with respect to project time. So if you are making a change at this point in time, in the beginning of the project, the cost of changes is very less. As you go up and towards the end of the project, the cost of changes goes very, very high. So that is the significance of why it is important that you consider all the stakeholders in the beginning, because if you find, for example, at this point in time, let's say you find that legal requirements for the projects are not taken into consideration, and it may have significant impact on your project, as a result of which your schedule will go for toss, your cost will go for toss, and hence it is imperative, it is important that you identify all the stakeholders at the beginning of the project. You keep on asking pertinent questions to all the stakeholders involved, including your sponsor and customers. Do we see any other stakeholders coming into the picture? So that that's how subject matter experts are important. So you should be keep talking with various stakeholders, and make it a very important exercise of coming out with the stakeholders in the beginning of the project life cycle rather than at the end. That is one. Secondly, once you have all the stakeholders in place, you gather all the requirements. It shouldn't be like this is the requirement, and if you are not getting it discussed with all the important stakeholders, you may miss some points, and if they come at that comes as a change at later point in time, you have a bigger cost implication. So that's the importance. So similarly, coming to the second variable, stakeholder influence. Stakeholder influence is very high at the beginning of the project. So he can, stakeholder can be customer, user, it can be, as we have seen, all those. And it is one important entity in project management that you shouldn't ignore. Forget about ignoring it. You should take it very seriously, and they have very high influence at the beginning of the project. So as the project progresses, so why the influence is going down? Because here progressive elaboration is already happening. So at the end of the project timeline, the complete elaboration of the project already has happened. So progressive elaboration has already happened. Hence, stakeholder can influence the highest at the beginning of the project, and hence appropriate stakeholder involvement is very important. Risk and uncertainty is very high at the beginning of the project. As the project approaches its closure, it goes down. So here we are seeing the risk as, I think we all understand the word risk, but risk from project management perspective is an event which is, if it happens in future, it will adversely usually impact the project. So it is something which may or may not happen in future. So risk is something which may or may not happen, is an event. So it is with respect to future. So for example, if I'm doing a project now, the delay in completing the project is one of the risks which we all are aware of, right? So, so that is the example of risk which may or may not happen in future. So that's so the risk is very high. So at the beginning of the project, as it goes down, as the project life cycle comes to the close, it goes down significantly, or it goes to zero almost. So similarly, uncertainty, risk and uncertainty, they are together. That's the reason.